Hey everyone, welcome back to the arena. This is MD, joined here by Covey, and once again an awesome guest in person, by the way, which I feel like it's been a while, but really excited to get into all of that. But first, love and appreciation to those that continue to follow us.
Yeah, what's going on, guys? You read my mind. We're getting good at this. I was just gonna say, I feel like we haven't had an in-person guest in a little while, and it's always very refreshing to have these in-person conversations. And this one's been in the works for a little while, so super excited to have Jamyle Cannon here. Jamyle is the executive director and founder of the Bloc, which is a sports-based education nonprofit, 501c, using the sport of boxing to provide academic and social resources to Chicago's youth. Jamyle's also a father and a bunch of other things. So without further ado, and has a newborn, which I think is why this took a little bit to, understandably took a little bit longer to make happen. But without further ado, Jamyle, why don't you just provide an overview of like who is Jamyle Cannon, how you got to where you are today, and then we'll kind of dive into the Bloc and what inspired you to start that.
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me on and being patient and taking the time it took because newborns don't care about my calendar, and my daughter especially does not care about my calendar. So I'm glad we were able to make it happen. I am in Chicago as someone who wants to give to the community, and I avoid saying give it back because in order to say that we're giving back means that there's something that has been taken. Right. I'm here to walk in community with folks, to do the best that I can with my life, to make life better for the people who are around me. So through the Bloc, we are connected with young people who are often excluded from enriching opportunities. We want to meet them where they are to help them get to where they want to be. So we meet them with the sport of boxing because we're looking for kids who want to fight. That's similar to how I was growing up. I was a hammer looking for a nail most of the time, and because of that, I was arrested or taken into custody, suspended from school, court-ordered anger management, and none of that really stopped me from going down the wrong path. It took somebody to embrace me, to see me as powerful, and to encourage me to be the highest form of myself, to get me to do the right thing. And I think the sooner we meet young people with that, the better off we're going to be. So that's so much a part of my mission, using boxing to find those young people and then empowering them with the whole host of resources around them to help them live the most fulfilling lives that they can.
Yeah, I'll go. You
Yeah, I mean, so the embracing part of it, right? Can we elaborate a little bit? Like, what does a failed attempt look like in your life growing up? If somebody trying to get through to you versus like, what does it mean to embrace you and see the best in you, but ultimately help you see the best in yourself?
Yeah, I'd love to start with the people who really did it well. I remember being 9 or 10 years old on this basketball team, and we were going to go on a trip to a tournament out of the state. Big deal. We had to pay money for it. We didn't have a whole lot of money growing up, so me and my brother, we were mowing lawns. We stole a lawnmower. Borrowed a lawn. We would put it back every day. It was in somebody's backyard. We borrow a lawnmower, mow some lawns. We knock on doors and take out trash. We get as much money as we could. People were giving us quarters and dollars and whatever they had. And we're putting it into this Coca-Cola shaped piggy bank to save up so we can go on these trips. We wake up on the day of the trip and all the money was gone. My stepfather, who was addicted to drugs at the time, had taken the money and disappeared. And I just remember being pissed off and like mad to tears as a 9-year-old. I can't believe this has happened to me. And my mother called the coach and said, "Hey, they're not gonna be able to go. We can't afford it." And the coach said, "Oh no, we got a booster club, no problem. Like we'll get it taken care of. We got people for this." And he was lying. Like he was just gonna pay for that out of his pocket. And he took us on that trip, and he made it like we're any other kids. If we wanted something from the restaurant, he got it from the restaurant. When we went to the mall, he bought us something from the mall. We just felt like we were one of his for that weekend. And to bring us in that way, in this really vulnerable time in my life where I just had something that devastated me. I worked hard, tried to achieve something, had it taken from me as a 9-year-old, and I was hurt. I felt something unfair was happening that was going to keep happening. So to show up in that moment,
by your stepfather,
yeah, by somebody who I was supposed to love and trust, right? So to show up in that moment and give a different model of what a man can do in somebody's life, that's a life-changing experience for me. I'll never forget. That led me on a path to make sure that everything we do for kids is free. Right now we have kids at Notre Dame University watching the Bloc bouts, their women's boxing matches, free. We're taking care of their food, we took care of transportation, they don't have clothes, they have it. That experience of fearing that I wasn't going to have enough to take part in something, and then having somebody cover it for me, that shaped that part of me to where I can't let it go. I think of another coach, Coach Breathitt, in high school. He used to talk to us and say, when you go to college, it's going to be like this. And that's not how people talk to us. It was always if, or it was always, you don't want to end up like this. You don't want to be those guys on the corner. You don't want to be dead or in jail. You don't want to. Hey, I'm a 3.5 student. Why are you talking about being dead or in jail to me? But when you go to college, this is what it's going to be.
I love it. It's like manifestation. It's
always positive.
Subtle.
As a track coach, he'd say, when you all start getting these best times in the state, people are going to look at you different. But people are going to offer you different things. He spoke to the highest form of what we could be, and that has shaped me forever. So I'm never going to a kid and saying, hey, let's stay out of trouble. I'm going to a kid and talking about all the good things they're going to be getting into, and using that as a baseline for our relationship as opposed to what we're going to avoid.
So you go to, talk through then your journey to getting to eventually founding the Bloc. Is there an aha moment for you where you're like, okay, I'm doing this, and here's why, or just kind of talk through that whole journey?
Yeah, I got pestered into it. That's what happened. So I was a national champion boxer. That was back in 2009. I came to Chicago to help start a school on the west side. When we started this school, I wanted to do something with kids after school. Sports had always been important to me, so okay, I'm going to coach a sport. There was nobody to coach basketball, so I coached basketball. When I held tryouts for basketball, 70 kids showed up. You can't have a 70-person roster on a basketball team. So we cut 58 kids in the first 2 days, but it's cut them immediately. And at the time, you're thinking that's what it takes to be on the team. You need the grades, you need the behavior, you need the skill. It's hard to get on this team. Then you realize that I just rejected 58 kids who wanted to be in a relationship with me, right? Who wanted to learn from me, who wanted to be with their peers, who wanted to get better at something that was important to them. And I told each and every one of them no. And it's not like you get rejected and then just go off and become a scholar athlete. That's not how it works for most people. Most people get rejected, and it's a deflating experience for them, and it has repercussions in every area of their lives. So I reflected on that and thought, what can I do to embrace every kid who wants to be a part of this now? Same time, kids have Googled me. They're learning I was a boxer. They're poking me saying you need to start a boxing club. You need to start a boxing club. I'm thinking there's no way I can start. That's the dumbest idea. How are we gonna do that in a school? And I started a boxing club in my classroom. So they advocated for it. They did not shut up about it. They made sure it is something that I knew they wanted to do, and I decided I needed to listen. So we started a boxing club in my classroom. We pushed the tables and chairs out of the way after school. Started with 12 kids. We'd have boxing training. By the end of the year, the books stank from just the sweat was accumulating in the room. But they loved it. They ended the school year with a 3.18 GPA. They decreased their discipline reports by 40%. They grew more on the ACT than the other kids, and that was just from having a space to be with people that they cared about, just from having a space where they wanted to be. So we got a little bigger the next year, 20 kids, same results. We started opening up to kids throughout the community. So kids started walking to us from other schools, kids started taking the train. At one point, 80 kids started coming to the program on the weekend, and the school made us shut it down. So the landlords of the school said, this is presenting a safety and security threat for the building, and we can't do this anymore. So I decided I was going to leave my job at the end of the year to start the nonprofit. The kids chose the name. Foolish decision to leave my job, by the way. We had no money. But by taking steps in the direction of positive momentum, it ended up working out for me.
And then something you said earlier that kind of caught my attention was you mentioned you are looking for, the Bloc is looking for kids that want to fight.
Yeah.
What does that search look like? How are you finding these kids?
They don't stop showing up. You walk into a middle school cafeteria and you say, who wants to fight, and 80 kids are raising their hands. That's a problem, right? But that means that there are that many kids who have a reason to fight. And I think if we listen to them for long enough, we're going to hear some things that would maybe make us want to fight too. If you're growing up in a community where you have been traumatized by violence, and then you go to school the next day and you got to sit down and shut up and pay attention with no mental health services, right? That'll make you want to fight. If you want to be a doctor and you don't have a science class, that'll make you want to fight. So I think we really need to find a way. It should be a lot harder to find a kid for the block. We shouldn't have a laundry list and a waiting list for kids who want to be a part of this program. It should be difficult. And I think we need to find ways to put resources in the schools that make it so that so many kids don't want to fight.
And now I want to kind of segue into just your overall philosophies around boxing, and because I always was drawn to like true martial arts, and I listened to a lot of Mike Tyson, and it's controlled violence, and I'm just curious, like, what lessons do these kids learn under your guidance, maybe just broadly about what they learn from boxing, but then how does that apply to life?
Yeah, I think starting with what I learned from boxing can give a pretty clear picture of that. See, I had a hard time turning down a fight. So I was the kid who was great in school, did the best that I could, had my mask on. As soon as I got out of school, I was a hammer looking for a nail. And through boxing, I recognized that you don't become mad at an instant. Something happens, you have an initial reaction, and that reaction builds inside of you. So if I can find a way to stop that building from happening and really realize what I'm feeling in that moment, then I can do something to make a plan that's going to help me succeed. Because I'd be in sparring, and I get hit and I get mad, right? And then I start swinging, I get beat up. And that's never what I wanted to do. And I realized after a while, I'm not actually mad while I'm sparring and I get hit. I'm disappointed. I feel like I should be doing better. Because I feel like I should be doing better, I'm not really addressing that, right? I'm letting that escalate into anger, and then I'm spiraling. So I had to recognize that anger was a secondary emotion, and I needed to address the first emotion. So if I'm getting hit and I'm mad, I know what I need to work on, actually. Because I'm disappointed in myself. I'm disappointed because I didn't get my hands up. Disappointed because I didn't move my head fast enough. I'm disappointed because he tricked me. So I need to work on these things and improve myself as opposed to getting angry.
And then do you translate that to, like, the real world, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not sparring necessarily, but, like, how does that translate or apply to the real world where, like, anger is your secondary emotion,
Right.
but really it's disappointment? Like, how have you helped, like, maybe young men and girls, grow in the life aspect of that?
Just as that applies to my relationships, my work, my progression, the same thing is true for a 12-year-old who's learning these things much younger than I learned, right? They're learning to address their own emotions before they step into a difficult situation. They're learning to confront their own fears in a way that's more even-keeled than maybe they would have before. They're learning that they have to prepare for a test, just like they prepare for sparring, or when they have a disappointment, it's like getting hit in the ring. You need to get your hands back up. You got to keep fighting no matter what it is that's happening. These are lessons that come through both implicitly, and we make sure we draw them out explicitly too. How are you going to use this in life? What does this remind you of? Where else can you use this skill that you're building right now? So that we don't just end those lessons inside of the ring. Now, in addition to that, every fighter in the block, and we call them fighters, every fighter in the block has a case manager. So they're meeting one-on-one with a youth development professional every other week to talk about things that are going on in their lives, to get external resources and support. So if they need additional mental health services, we can reach out for referrals on that. If they need housing support, if they're food insecure, whatever it happens to be, they have somebody that they can talk to so that we can explicitly support them in the ways that they need supported, so that it's not just, they don't just receive gains because they're motivational, because they're motivated. They're receiving gains because the material conditions of their lives are changing because of what's happening at the block.
Yeah, no, that's really inspiring, to be honest. What has been, like, I'm sure there's been ups and downs. Talk about just some of, like, the biggest challenges associated with starting a nonprofit, and kind of how it affected you mentally, and ultimately how you're able to kind of work through some of that.
Being a black man in a nonprofit realm, and being someone who genuinely loves the kids that we work with, one of the most difficult things that happens to me is feeling like I'm being asked to trade a kid's trauma for support. So tell me the stories. Tell me about the kid who died. Tell me about the kid who was carrying a gun or something along those lines. There are people who need to know that that we are saving kids from some unthinkable harm that they'll inflict upon themselves or the world. There are people who don't really see our kids in their full humanity, because all that's necessary for me is to look at the results of what's happening to the kids on the west side of Chicago, to see that they're much more likely to be unemployed after they graduate high school, that they're graduating at a much lower rate, that they're living 20 years less than people in the Gold Coast. Like, that's all I need to know to say that we need to provide some resources and opportunities for those people. And I want to do that because I love those people. And if I love those people, I don't need to know the intricacies of their trauma to say that I'm going to support them and I'm going to be there and walk with them. The only reason I would need to know the intricacies of their trauma is if I wanted to act from a place of pity and a place of superiority, right? But because I want to walk with them, I see that their results aren't the same as elsewhere. I believe that they are powerful and good, and because of that, I want to provide resources and opportunities.
And how do you instill that in them, unlocking that sense of empowerment in a lot of these kids, which I'm sure a lot of the self-esteems I have to imagine are so low just from what they've been through. How do you help unlock that in them?
I think everybody has an intrinsic belief in themselves, right? And it's the conditions that stop them from acting on those beliefs. So what we're doing is creating a safe space where you can be vulnerable, you can make mistakes and come back. But we also have these opportunities where you see yourself growing. You see your grades going up. You see yourself getting better at sparring. You're running a faster amount of time. Your push-ups are getting stronger. All these, you get undeniable evidence of the power that you have because we're putting it right in front of you every week. You did 8 push-ups when you came in here. Now you're at 22. Where'd that come from, right? So that sense of pride can get welled up in them because they're seeing the impact of their efforts time after time again.
And then do you ever have a sense of imposter syndrome as you're kind of going through this whole journey, being a leader? Does that ever kind of set in? I'm only asking from a place of other nonprofit executives that we've had on the show, one of them, yeah. But that feeling of who am I to be kind of leading this?
I used to really struggle with imposter syndrome, and I realized 2 things. I realized first that the only people who don't have imposter syndrome are people who aren't growing, right? Because I can look at all the room that I have to grow, and I can think of that as I'm not good enough right now, or I can think of that as my potential in the future. But if I'm not growing, if I'm stagnant where I am,
if you're not growing, you're dying. I mean,
right.
That's what they say.
Right. And when you're growing and you're aware of your need to grow, I think sometimes in that gap, that anxiety of imposter syndrome can start to come through. Now, for me, what changed it, because it's gone. It's gone because people aren't that special.
Yeah.
Nobody out there is that smart. I've not met a single person I thought. Actually, I've met a few people where I thought whoa, you're incredible. I don't know where they make you. I'll never be as good at that. I'm just gonna learn from you. That's all I'm gonna do when I meet those people. But the overwhelming majority of people that I meet, it's not like they're some ridiculous intellect. It's not like they are strategic masterminds or they're workhorses. Nobody's special. And neither am I, right? Nobody's special and neither am I. So we're all just out here working. The important thing is that when I'm going to make mistakes, I need to forgive myself and keep it moving, and always make new mistakes. That's what I tell myself all the time.
I love the imposter syndrome quote. I'll quote you on that. I don't know if you stole that from somebody or not, but just viewing that as just an opportunity to grow. It's kind of thematic with what we've talked about. I want to go back to so 9 years old, and you're working at 9 years old to make money, which is kind of a problem, right? And but you're doing that, and you're taking ownership and responsibility of your situation. And then that money gets stolen, you feel betrayed. There's probably some trust issues that build up from that, beyond just the anger. How did that then evolve in your life to a place where now I'm making some money, I'm able to build something for myself, and I want to give back? How did you go from maybe anger and trust issues to a place of I want to give back?
I really think about what I would have needed I think it's so much about the Bloc. What did I need when I was 10, right? And what do I want to make sure is there for my son and daughter? Because, man, I couldn't imagine like having a place to go to like the Bloc after school, and what that would have meant for me and my friends in the community that I was in.
Your face is like lighting up as you say that, man.
Wild to me. It's because I walk into the Bloc and we got the best people in the world. I'm getting teary-eyed thinking about our staff because we got the best people. A kid's gonna go in there. It's like somebody loves the hell out of them. Like, so there's just somebody there that loves the hell out of them, and they're gonna push them. They're gonna dropping a tear. They're I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry, man. That's why we're in the arena. That's what it's for. Yeah, it's a very powerful story.
They're going to push them. They're going to fuss at them. They're going to challenge them. They're going to support them. They're going to talk to their parents and guardians and school teachers. They're going to be all up in their business about all kinds of stuff. And they're going to give them opportunities that so many kids are denied. The idea right now that, we have 50 some odd kids at the University of Notre Dame, going on a campus tour and like eating on campus and meeting the boxing team and probably going into the football stadium and stuff like that while I'm sitting here, because we have a staff that sees these opportunities for kids and wants to make sure that they have them. I forgot the question.
Yeah, I mean,
a good answer.
Well, I mean, like, you're clearly inspired by closing the gap from what you had in your life. It's like, well, now I recognize what I could have really benefited from, so I'm just going to go create that for other people.
Yeah.
And that's a selfless act, right? You even mentioned at one point, like, leaving your own job to go and build something where you, once again, are going to financially struggle to do so, but there was still, like, a deeper motivation or even a purpose to go and create this for kids you don't know, and I'm just wondering, like, where that sense of, like, selflessness came from. Like, what made you want to go and do that, such a selfless act, instead of just take care of yourself?
I think I'm at war with the conditions that screwed me over. I think
I love that.
I think that's what it is. I think I wake up at war with the idea that there's a kid that's going to have something unthinkable happen to them, and they're just going to have to go wake up, put on their pants, put on a shirt, go to school, and nobody's going to ask about it. That there's a kid out there stealing a lawnmower, mow some lawns, and make some money, and won't even see the fruits of that because somebody else is facing an addiction that's going to be criminalized instead of supported and changed. There's a kid in a school that doesn't have the resources to support them towards their dreams. There's a kid who nobody believes in, who people think is headed for nothing when they could really be headed for greatness. So I think I'm at war with the conditions that harmed me, and I think I wake up with that in my mind every day.
And are you able to find peace with the fact that, because I know you have Chicago cited on your hoodie, and I mean, it's a huge city, and the harsh reality is you're not going to be able to reach and help and save everybody, right? And when we've talked to the other non-for-profit guys who knows that they're not going to be able to save every dog, right? And for the kids out there, these are human lives that you're mentioning with real problems. How have you been able to find peace within yourself to understand, like, I'm not going to be able to perhaps save everybody, but, like, I could still make an impact, with a significant magnitude?
I think, one, we don't save anybody, right? Young people, if anybody's being saved, they're saving themselves. And what we're doing is putting the conditions in place so that they can have the things that all young people deserve access to, and kids on the west side of Chicago are just denied, systemically denied. What I think is important about our work is, one, yes, we have an expansion plan to reach thousands of kids over the next 5 years, but more importantly, what we need to do is send a message of what community investment means and the impact that it's going to have on our city. Because not every kid is going to be found through the sport of boxing. But if we make it clear, if we start meeting kids where they are and then providing them with holistic resources, we can change our city. If we make that clear through the work that we're doing, and I believe that we can, that we can shift the momentum of what's happening within the city so that every young person has the opportunity to be deeply engaged in something that they love with people that they care about and people who care about them.
Yeah, I love what you said around having someone believe in them, because I think that can be so empowering. I even relate back to my story, but even there's the Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniels. There was something I saw on Twitter earlier this week, but basically Mike McDaniels was like, there was all a lot of negative talk about Tua Tagovailoa, who's their quarterback, and he was like, what if someone just believed in this guy? And if you don't know the sport, like he's done very well now, and that really hit me, is like the belief that the power that you can instill in someone from just believing in them, especially as a kid when you're so vulnerable and young, can be so powerful.
It's affirming, and you need that affirmation because you're looking around the world for confirmation of who you are, right? And the way that people treat you, you internalize about yourself. So if you treat me as if you don't believe in me, and I'm 11, 12 years old and impressionable, and I'm used to my teacher treating me that way, my mom treating me that way, my brother treating me that way, the people on the street treat me that way, then I'm internalizing that belief into myself. And the moment somebody starts to believe, it can cut through the noise. And if that becomes a consistent part of a young person's life, it can change the way they think about themselves, change their thought patterns, change their behaviors, and change their outcomes. So the idea of believing in somebody and telling them and acting like it every single day.
What does that look like? That's what I was going to ask. Is like, what is like taking a belief, like and truly believing in the kids? Like, what does that look like?
I think 2 levels of this, right? You got the macro level belief, and if we look at our city right now, it's clear that we don't believe that young people in certain areas. You can say the west and the south side, but there's really pockets all over the city, right? We don't truly believe that young people can do incredible things. I say that because if we believed it, we would act like it. We would invest like it. Our schools will look like it. The way that we interacted with them will look like it. The spaces we created will look like it. So when we believe, how do I? This is another thread that's coming to mind. If you look at the south and west sides of Chicago, there are 2 things that you can believe about the people there. You can believe that they are less motivated, less worthy, less intelligent than people in other areas, or you can believe that something profoundly unfair is happening. If you can internalize the idea that something profoundly unfair is happening, it's going to change the way that you act. It's going to change what you invest in and how we approach some of the problems that we have. So if we think about a problem like addiction, right now, well, and that's starting to change, but when we think about addiction, we want to address that by penalizing those people. But if you believe those people were actually worthy of support and they could get better, then we would change the way that we approach addiction as a society. If you think about education, and what happens when a kid acts up in school. The first thing that we do is we kick them out of that school, or we suspend them for a while, but we believe we would find a way to restore their place within that community so that they can grow and learn and come back to being a positive version of themselves. So the acting like we believe is about creating opportunities where we now create punishments and barriers. It's about finding ways to create paths forward instead of finding ways to exclude people.
That's very, very well said. I asked about your biggest challenges, but what is like your proudest moment in your life, and then also with the Bloc, and if they go hand in hand, they go hand in hand?
I mean, I got a wife and 2 kids, so I remember when my son was born, just like a release of all the emotions in the world came. I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. It was far beyond anything. Just like looking at my wife, like, how the hell did you do this? And then seeing my son, and then the same thing with my daughter, just having this completely different being, that to whom I meant the world. That is a life-shifting moment and things that I'll never forget.
Life-shifting, elaborate on that.
Everything gets a different perspective. Like the purpose of your life. My wife became a mother when she got pregnant, right? Because they go, there are a whole lot of changes their body's going through. They're immediately connected to this human being that they're growing. And as much as I thought I became a father when she got pregnant, I really became a father when that child was born. And in that moment, you realize that there is not I realized there's not a wall I wouldn't run through for that child. And every pro and con scenario, every dilemma that I face, everything comes down to like what impact is this going to have on my child. When I think about even business decisions, when I want my child to go through this program at the Bloc, is this something that I'm going to want my kid to do? Everything about my thinking has started to center what kind of world am I creating for my child and what kind of example am I setting for my children.
Wow.
And like, I guess, how has your maybe, I guess, purpose evolved? You know, what was it before that? You know, like, what was your purpose, you know, I guess, growing up, getting to that point?
Yeah. I'm fortunate to have a mother who impressed upon me the need to use my energy to make life better for people around them. Mm-hmm. My mother did social work and then became a social worker. You know, she was doing social work before she got her degree. She got a degree, officially became a social worker. Has had clients for almost as long as I've been alive. She works with adults with mental disabilities, and she, you know, just pours her love into that work every single day. And I've gotten a model of what it means to give myself to other people, almost to a fault, right? But a model of what it means to give myself to other people from her, and that's something that's always going to stick with me. So a lot of that motivation was put into me from the time I was born, influenced by some of the negative things that I experienced in my life, and then given a whole new purpose when my children were born.
And then, like, as a coach now, right, like as somebody who oversees the boxing community, do you have a golden rule? Do you have maybe your 3 core values or principles that you instill on people? And if so, like, what is that or what are they?
That's a good question. I think I need to think about what comes through intrinsically, right? You know, we believe in being welcoming to everybody, right? So there's an expectation for me. If you're one of our more experienced boxers, when somebody walks into the gym, if you don't know them, you go and say hello. You go and introduce yourself, you make sure they're welcome, you make sure that they know that they belong here. That's something incredibly important to me. I place a high value on not wasting time when we're in the gym. So we hustle the things, we hustle back, and we apply ourselves to the fullest, to our fullest ability. And I think finally, deliberate practice. If you're going to get great at something, you need to practice it deliberately. If you need to go from a C to an A at math, you need to practice whatever drills you need to practice for math. You want to get a better jab, you got to practice that jab on a bag and practice nothing else but a jab for a while. And it may be boring, it may be monotonous, but champions don't get bored, right? Champions lock in and they find what is interesting about this thing that they need to figure out, and they do what they have to do. So deliberate practice in the ring, deliberate practice in our lives, in school, deliberate practice with managing our emotions. There are times where I am feeling a thing. I need to name that thing to myself and practice doing the right thing even when I don't feel like it. And having those conversations with young people, I think, is also important.
And, like, what if a kid doesn't want to be a champion, right? Or, like, what if they're starting to maybe go through the motions, or they're just showing up, and maybe what are they losing sight of to you? And, like, what are you trying to remind them of?
They're losing sight of why they showed up. Right? Why are you here to begin with? Now, not every kid wants to be a champion, literally, but every kid is coming for a reason, right? And that might be because you're tired of getting bullied at school. It might be because you had to prove something to yourself. Maybe you think it'll make your father proud. Maybe you want to be a champion. But any one of those things, and we can unpack, you know, how healthy each one is, but any one of those things is going to require.
I was unpacking them in my head as you're saying them.
And that's necessary, right? But that's what brings them here. Okay, let's reference that. Let's talk about that. Any one of those things requires effort. So reminding them of their why it is that they showed up to begin with, I think is one of the most important things. We have a kid who just had a fight. I asked him, like, why are you doing this? He said, I want to make my family proud. And I said, all right, you need to go fight like it. And he had a boxing match and he lost. And he's thinking, like, I just ruined it. You know, his family just comes and surrounds him. They're like, it's like one of their proudest moments. Like, to have this kid get in the ring and like, I don't know, it's like a light bulb goes off for him. Like, dang, they're proud, even though I lost. You know, to have that moment with your family, that takes a full understanding of your why to feel the full effect of that.
If if you could, like, if your kids could, they, let's say they go to their parents after their experience at the Bloc, and they say, Mom, Dad, like, I learned this about the Bloc, or I got this experience out of it, what would be like the most ideal thing that you'd want to hear?
I had fun. You know, I just, at the end of the day, if a young person has something that's meaningful to them, they're gonna be better off, right? So if they find a passion in it, if they enjoy it, they're gonna take so many more. Like, think about the fun stuff that you did when you were growing up, whether it's a sports team or an instrument or whatever. You got so much more out of that than just that one fun thing, but you did it because it was fun. So, there are lots of ancillary benefits to being at the Bloc, and those benefits are very important, but at the core of it is they like doing it. So we want to create an experience that kids want to come to.
And then I kind of switching gears a little bit, but we've got, a mental health focus on here, and I just would love if you've had any experience with therapy, like what your experience has been, what you've learned about yourself, if anything, how if the Bloc has a relationship with therapy and the kids, and how that kind of commingles together. Would love to just get your thoughts there.
Yeah, I'm about 1 year out from what I would consider a mental breakdown. So about a year ago, it just all became too much for me. We had a kid die over the summer, and in that moment, I made sure the staff was good. I, put on a fundraiser for the kid's family. I started trying to arrange resources for folks. I just forgot about myself. And then I kind of put it into my pocket and went on with work. And as other stressful events, it's stressful to run an organization, it's stressful to have a child, it's stressful to be married sometimes. Like, as other stressors started coming up, those just piled on, and to the point where I just kind of imploded. I feel like I was physically on the ground. And at that point, I started therapy. I started taking the antidepressants as well. It turns out I was depressed and had anxiety. Who knew? Things that I wouldn't have attributed to myself. But I learned that I have a breaking point. And in learning that I had a breaking point, I had to learn to identify what it looked like to be approaching that breaking point. All these times where I'm eating 4 cups of coffee just to stay awake through the day. Maybe my body's telling me something, or I'm getting heart palpitations and thinking nothing of it. Maybe my body is telling me something. So I had to learn what it looked like to be approaching that. So I'm in therapy still. I feel much better. I feel much better than I did this time last year, and I'm really thankful for that, because I didn't even recognize how low I was until I came out of it. And then I realized, like, all the thoughts that I was having, the way that I interacted with the world, all that was different and not who I wanted to be. So now I have regular therapy. I've got a safety plan. I've got an understanding of the fact that my energy is finite, and really taking that idea that I might be invincible off has helped me tremendously. So therapy's been really important for me, because I hadn't realized just how stressful my normal day is. Being a nonprofit leader, being visible, having stresses that we didn't really evolve to deal with. We didn't evolve to get 30 hate messages on social media because of something you posted about geopolitical conflict. We didn't evolve to manage payroll of an organization. Like, we didn't evolve for that. So a lot of things that I face are unnatural, and I realized I needed help unpacking, dealing with, and coping. So.
And when did that? Was there like an aha moment, or when did that moment click? When it was like, was it you that was like, okay, I need help? Was it someone else that was like, your wife, you need to get help? Like, what kind of like led you down that path?
Oh, I feel lucky in the sense that I had a panic attack. I had a panic attack that made it undeniable that I wasn't in a good space, and I had to tell my wife in the middle of a panic attack, I need help. I need help now. And from there we went to a free clinic. At the clinic, they said, hey, you got really good insurance, you should do this. They introduced me to ZocDoc, and I made an appointment for a psychiatrist the next day because they explained to me that so many negative events have happened that it seems as if like what is happening inside of your brain isn't what will typically happen for somebody like you. You might need some support getting that back to normal so that you can like live a life that you want to live, more or less. And that explanation really clicked with me. So I called a psychiatrist, got an appointment, set up with a therapist to get started, and have been on the recovery since.
And prior to that panic attack, because I think one of the misconceptions, or maybe one of the fears that a man would have, especially in a marriage, is admitting to their wife that they need help. And I'm wondering, like, had you ever blocked yourself from doing that earlier, and was there ego attached to that? And maybe what's the feeling or the liberating feeling of relief or freedom that you might have felt from that moment where you were able to admit that comfortably and then receive that support from her?
Yeah, so much of our socialization is dealing with stuff on our own, like this whole lone wolf, I got it sort of mentality. So much had been in me to the point that I didn't even realize how bad things were with myself, because I just pushed it down, kept moving. You get this stoic persona that you take on. I just believed it about myself. I thought I was invincible.
Is that a big part of the boxing mentality too, growing up, or no?
I think I had that long before, and I don't think that shedding it would hurt my boxing, right? I don't think that shedding that stoicism, the idea that I'm invincible, the recognition that I'm a fallible and vulnerable human being
probably would help.
Yeah, I think so.
If anything,
get hit less. And that's not something that we encourage with fighters. Like, if you're feeling something, say it. If you're hurt, say it. Like, let us know, because it's important to us. But it was so ingrained in me, I think, from my upbringing, from experiences, from looking around and thinking that nobody had my back, that I got to get it myself, that I never even thought to ask for help. And it got to a point where it was forced out of my mouth, and I felt relief, right? There was such a huge sense of relief to know that I didn't have to do something alone. And I wonder how many things I actually didn't have to do alone in my past that had I just asked for help for, I would have been better off. Or had I just expressed like, hey, I'm really hurting from this and I need some help with this. I wonder how many things, somebody would have stepped up for me. And if I had the vocabulary to say that when I was 12 years old.
And so, I mean, you've been a national champion boxer. You've gone to therapy and you've healed yourself. You've sought help. So no matter what definition of toughness,
we're always healing.
I mean, no matter what definition of toughness people pick, like you've demonstrated toughness regardless of the definition that either people, side with, right? And so I think we ought to learn from you, like, what can you tell a young man who says, like, I want to make sure that I'm tough. I want to be a tough man. Like, what is your definition and how do you get there?
I think when they say tough, what they really want to be is strong. And toughness and strength aren't the same thing.
I love that. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking in my head.
They think that they should be able to withstand these negative things that are happening to them, and that's the toughness that they want to exhibit. But really, they want to be able to lift themselves up and lift other people up. Sometimes that's going to require help. That's going to require for you to stop and say, this is too much for me right now. Because just like in a weight room, if you're lifting too much, you're going to tear a muscle, you're going to injure yourself, you're going to be out of it. But if you get a spot, if somebody's there to help you, then you put yourself in a position to strengthen yourself and do so much more that you could have done without it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's spot on. Like, to me, toughness is also like choosing the harder thing, which is to ask for help. Like, it is harder to admit to yourself that, hey, I'm not okay. It's easier to, at the end of the day, it is easier to repress the feeling. Right. It also creates more suffering, but in the moment, it is much easier to just throw it aside. Say, I got this.
Yeah. Because there's an uncertainty of what's going to happen when you ask for help. You have no idea.
It's vulnerable. It's a vulnerable thing to do. Yeah.
Right. And if you come up in the socialized in the society we get socialized in, we get told not to ask for help. We learn not to ask for help, so we don't ask for help. We have no idea what's going to happen next. We don't know if we're going to get ridiculed, if we're going to be ostracized. We don't know if things are going to tell the world that I'm not strong enough. We don't know how we're going to feel about ourselves. We don't have practice at it. Like, we don't have the repetitions of asking for help because it was so far discouraged when we were growing up. In the years where we could have been getting that practice in, So that first time is terrifying. Like, I was afraid to ask for help in the middle of a panic attack. You know? Like, I feel like I'm about to die and I don't even want to ask for help, right? But the moment it comes out of my mouth, I felt like I was in a better place.
100%. Yeah, no, I mean the same and that's why it's a shame that like there's still the stigma around it, because it often takes a breaking point. Like in your case, in my case, something similar, where I just got to a point where the pain of living the way I was worse than, was just more, it was more sufferable than just saying like I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And the sense of well, there's a ton of pain in admitting that I didn't need help. There's also a sense of like freedom, like just getting it out. Like, yeah, I'm not all right. And not knowing how it's going to be receptive. And part of me like always knew that I had a great support system and I was going to be positively receptive, but there were so many suppressed emotions that in my head it was unimaginable to actually admit that I wasn't all right, and here's the reason why. And I think that's so powerful, because therapy doesn't have to be a last kind of measure, like a get to a breaking point in order to get it. Like, I still do therapy, and I don't think quote unquote need it, but everyone can benefit. I've said this a million times, but everyone can benefit from it in some way. Some people are more maybe in a crisis mode, like in your case when you had a panic attack, in my case when I was in my process of like the beginning of self-acceptance. But I still use it and I view it as a tool, and it's just built such a increased level of self-awareness, which I'm sure you can relate to as well, and like the ability to self-regulate that I just did not have, and I wouldn't have, because we all have our biases. I mean, definitely find like a friend, someone that you can confide in if you have one, but they're also going to have their biases. They know you, like a professional doesn't know you walking in, and for me that was like very, very helpful.
Yeah. The idea, like right now I consider myself in maintenance mode of therapy.
Yeah,
still,
I like that.
I'm floating around. I'm pretty even every now and then. I'll get a peak, right? And I actually don't know where that peak would go if I didn't have that next week of therapy coming up, right? Because every now and then something extremely stressful will happen, and I feel more vulnerable now than I ever have in the past, in terms of like, could this lead to depression? Could this pique my anxiety? I'm never quite.
Like you want to get ahead of it, yeah. Like actually deal with it head on, which is what we should do when these things come up. Is actually address them,
right.
And not suppress them, and then they're going to show up later in life through projection and other things.
Yeah, absolutely. So knowing that I'm going twice a month at this point, and just in maintenance mode, if something comes up, I get to talk about it. If nothing's going on, I get to talk about improvement.
Right.
So that's where I am now.
I love the idea that, well, I think a primary blocker for asking for help is fear, you know, and if you can impart to somebody, it's like, hey, you're not doing this simply because you're scared to, right? Well, often it's because we're trying, like the uncertainty piece is like we're trying to see around the corner and understand like what's going to happen. So I think your wife plays a huge role here in how she reacted or responded in the way that she seemed like she should have. Well, take us through that, right? Continue to endorse the idea that what you fear tends to be far more irrational than the reality of what actually ends up happening. So what's the scenario? What's the worst case in your mind as to what's going to happen when you ask for help, and then what actually happened that day?
When I think about what the worst case scenario is, I can't even really come up with anything, right? The fear is irrational, right? It doesn't make any sense because, let's say it wasn't my wife. My wife loves me like no other human being on this planet ever has. And I love her the same. It's wonderful. There's no way I'm going to say to her, hey, I need help, and she's going to just brush me off. It's not going to happen. But let's say I didn't have her. Let's say I called my brother. Same deal, right? My brother's going to figure out what it is.
People want to help other people.
Yeah, people want to help. And if I feel like I might be able to go to a stranger on the street and say, I need some help, and they'll try to figure it out for me. So I don't even have a worst case scenario. It's just that I didn't know. I didn't know what was going to happen, and it so far defied my picture of myself. I think that's I'm going to step out of what I believe I am. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the scary part about asking for help, because it's not about that other person. You know that other person's wonderful, just like you knew, right? I feel like maybe I have these resources around me. Maybe I shouldn't ask for help, but people are going to be there for you when you ask for them. When you say in no uncertain terms, I need some help right now.
And so what did it look like the best case scenario and how she responded? Because I just think that like wives play such a critical role and they have such an awesome responsibility here to help men feel more comfortable facing that fear. Like, let's shout her out for a little bit here.
Yeah.
Like, what did that look like in her support to you?
What I give her so much credit for is how calm she stayed. Like, she stayed in, because I am like not in the right headspace at this time. Like, I feel like I'm not acting like myself, I'm not talking like myself, I'm not moving like myself. And she just stayed so calm and tried to assess what it is that I needed. That's all it was in that moment. She's going to stay calm, ask me what I think I need, assess what I need, and make sure that I stayed safe in that moment. So I don't know how she did it, because I do not remember what all I was saying or doing, but it could not have seemed like I had it together, because I didn't. But just how calm she stayed, how loving she remained, and how she put me in position to talk to the people I needed to talk to.
Yeah, and I would imagine your wife's done quite a bit of work on herself in order to have that type of response.
Yeah.
Because if it were me pre kind of healing, and again, I feel like I'm always like you mentioned the word healed. Like, I don't think we're all ever going to be healed. Like, we're always healing. But before that whole process of therapy, like, I probably would have freaked out with you because I didn't know how to deal with it. I don't know how to deal with panic attack. You know, I've never dealt with it. And so kudos to your wife.
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Do you have anything else you want to ask before we wrap up? And I just want to thank you. We have 3 rapid fire questions, but thank you for your vulnerability.
I'm nervous now.
No, they're fun. This is fun.
I don't know why we call it rapid fire, but
they're
three short. Yeah,
they're fun.
You can take your time. Yeah.
All right.
So a couple of them are thought provoking, but the first one, actually before that, I just wanted to thank you for coming on,
Of course.
for sharing for being vulnerable, for acting like such a role model for so many children, but also parents. Like if people don't follow, we'll make sure to drop all your social media stuff, where they can find you, but. Just for your parenting, your willingness to speak out on social causes, like, it's very, very admirable from what I've seen. So I just wanted to commend you for that.
Thank you. And thank y'all for having me on. It's been a great conversation, and important to have this space where we talk about what's been going on and how we got to where we are, considering our mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question is, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever been given, or just like a favorite quote that you have? Can be either or.
The best piece of advice I've ever been given changes based on my scenario. And right now, because I'm deep in parenting mode, I go back to what Liz Thompson said to me about what her mother told her about having a second child. She said she was so afraid to have her second child that she went to her mother crying and saying she doesn't know that she can love somebody as much as she loves her first child. She was afraid.
Oh wow,
of
I never have thought about that.
Yeah, but there's a look like you question, like, am I gonna have a favorite? You know, am I gonna love one more than the other? She said her mother said, "You got it all wrong. You grow a whole new heart when you have a second child." And I thought, like, oh, that's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. but it's the truth, right? That the idea that you had to ration your love between children actually isn't real. You love them from a different place, and you can love them all the same. And that it has been on me for 2.5 months now.
I love that, and it's so ironic that you say that, because I was just getting my haircut today. If anyone's watching, you can see I got it today. But I was talking to my hair cutter, and who I have a friendship with, and I asked her today, which I've never asked her before, because she has 4 children. I said, "Which one's your favorite?"
No way.
I couldn't make this up. I said, "Which one?" I've never asked her that before.
Yeah.
But we were talking about her kids, and I said, "Okay, you've got a 19-year-old, a 20-year-old. I want to make sure she hears this. A 24-year-old and a 27-year-old." I said, "Which one's your favorite?" She said, "I can never pick."
Yeah.
She's like, they're all my favorite.
Yeah.
She's like, I have different relationships with each and every one of them. Some come to me for more, some come to me less. Like, I'm definitely, like, quote unquote closer, you know, like, but I could never pick a favorite.
And I thought that was a lie. You know, I thought that was a lie until when I got that advice, and then I had a second child. I was like, oh yeah, I love them differently. You're right. They're in different places in their lives and need different things, but there's not a favorite. There's not one that I love more or less.
Wow, that's crazy. All right, second question. If you could have dinner with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be
Who would
and
I
why?
have dinner with? My gosh. Who? I have no idea.
Some people know right away, and some people are like, never thought about that.
Because, like, you realize over time that all your heroes are just people. right? But they've experienced some wild stuff. Like, who am I left with so many? I'm gonna take so long to answer this question. I'm sorry, but who am I left with so many unanswered questions from that I just like I need to sit down with them? I think it would have to be like an ancestor of mine. There was a time, my family, when I look back at our genealogy, they were landowners for a while, and then it just stopped. And I'm very like, what happened? You know, what happened after that point? I'm just really curious as to like what happened in our family lineage. So I would go with like great grandma or grandpa.
That's such a thoughtful answer.
Yeah.
And then lastly, just like, what do you like to do in your free time? What are Jamyle's hobbies?
I don't have a lot of free time right now.
Yeah, fair.
But I took up jiu-jitsu for a while. I'm not very good. I just go. I'd have an appointment to get beat up every week, but I really enjoyed that. I really like though, like going to training with the kids and not being the trainer. So, you know, we have other boxing trainers. I'll go in, I'll just join one of the classes. I'll get a workout. I'll take my son sometimes, and you know, he's 2.5. He'll get in there and throw his punches around. So, I really enjoy that my son loves it so much. Like, he's a Bloc fanatic. If there's something with a Bloc logo, he wants to wear it. He wants to go to the Bloc all the time. He loves the kids, even though he doesn't talk to them when he's there. So, like, going up to the Bloc, working out as a guest, and then taking my son with me.
That's awesome. All right, we're going to sign off here. Thank you again, Jamyle. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.